Joining me now is author Gideon Levy. He's a world-renowned columnist at Haaretz, the Israeli paper that is famous. Really, it has taken a very critical line against the Netanyahu government, particularly over the war in Gaza now. But of course, Mr. Levy has been writing about this for a very long time. Thanks so much for speaking to us at Worldview.
Thank you for having me. It's always nice to meet you.
You're there in Tel Aviv. Now, in your latest column in the Haaretz, you've asked a question of why, even though many Israelis are against the war, why they don't feel the pain of Palestinians in Gaza. And you've made a very strong statement. You said, even though Israel has now committed 1,000 October 7th in just the past few years, what is your sense of the situation in Gaza today, because of course we see a lot of the videos, and what is the support for the war inside Israel?
So, as about the situation in Gaza, I think that both of us cannot imagine ourselves what does it mean to live now in Gaza. Those are walking dead people. I talked to some of them, but very, very few of them. We cannot imagine it, and we better don't imagine it because I don't think many people went through what they are going through. It must remind memories from the worst times of history. The starvation, the children, the destruction. You see the images of destruction. It's really outrageous. And the fact that the world is still silent, and it is silent, is condemning but not taking any measures to stop it, is really astonishing. Now to your question. Look, something happened in Israel on the 7th of October besides the crimes of the 7th of October. Israel got to the notion that after the 7th of October, Israel has the right to do whatever it wants. No limits, no borders, not legally, not morally. We have the right to do whatever we want because what they have done to us. The second thing that happened after the 7th of October is obviously the feeling that all the embassy town, the Palestinian people, even by the peace camp, was finished. No more, it's almost illegal and for sure immoral in Israel to pay some kind of empathy, some kind of mercy, some kind of humanity toward the people of Gaza. It is immediately labeled as treason. And those two things, together with the unbelievable betrayal of Israeli media, which does not show Gaza to the Israelis because they don't want to see Gaza, you will be astonished to see how little any Indian saw more of Gaza than any average Israeli. And this also enables the Israelis not to know, and they choose not to know, and to continue to feel good about themselves. They still think that everything we do in Gaza is self-defense. Altogether is a very, very depressing picture because humanity is finished. Any kind of solidarity with the real victims, and the people of Gaza are the biggest victims right now, is off the table, and the future looks very dark.
Right. Well, you have spoken about, of course, the suffering inside Gaza. What we saw in the last few weeks was a statement by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that he was now preparing for military control of Gaza. First time since Israel pulled out in 2005. That announcement, apart from the increase in bombardment of Gaza in the last week or so, seems to have led to a shift on the part of three leaders who have so far been much more supportive of the Israeli position, the leaders of United Kingdom, France, and Canada. Do you think this, their statement together, their threat of sanctions against Israel, saying we will no longer turn a blind eye to what Israel is doing, do you think it marks a turning point in the kind of idea that Israel still had support? And do you think it'll make a difference?
So, Asimi, no declaration will make a difference. no declaration will change the policy of Israel. The only thing that can change the policy of Israel will be measures, actions. And the world until now is just talking, and Israel learned to live with condemnation and to ignore them as long as it is not being followed up by real measures. Like, for example, toward Russia a few weeks after the invasion to Crimea. As long as it's only talking, it is with very little influence. Add to this the notion that most of the Israelis believe that the whole world is in any case anti-Semitic, that the whole world in any case doesn't like us. So why would we care? They're all, I mean, it's their fault, not our fault. They are the anti-Semites. We are the moral people with the most moral people, a moral army in the world.
Right. Netanyahu, in
So
fact, accused Macron, the French president, of speaking for
absolutely,
Hamas.
absolutely. Macron, who is really very devoted to find a solution, is labeled as a pro-Hamas. Anyone who dares to criticize Israel, anyone, is immediately labeled as anti-Semite. And, words will not change it.
Sure.
The only way to change it is taking actions. By this, I don't want to undermine those declarations. They are showing a new tone in Europe. They might be followed up with actions. They might. It might be a beginning of a new game. But we have to see if it will be followed up with actions or it will remain as a hollow lip service.
Right. You make a fair point that eventually there has been criticism before. The declarations don't necessarily translate to action that'll change the course inside Israel. What about the domestic criticism of the war in Gaza, which seems to be increasing? So far we had seen most of the columnists, apart, of course, from you and others in the Haaretz itself, speaking really about the hostages, that the hostages must be returned, and for that criticizing the Netanyahu government. But recent columns we have seen, for example, by former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, General Yair Golan's comments about the killing of children in Gaza. I think former Prime Minister Ehud Barak has been critical as well. Do you think that changes something internally in Israel? Because somehow Israeli politics does seem a little more difficult to, it seems a lot more complex when you're watching it from the outside.
It is not. I'm sure Indian politics is much more complex than Israeli politics, but we will not make the comparison now. In any case, look, there are two camps in Israel. One camp will follow Netanyahu blindly and automatically, no matter what he does. This camp is quite solid. The coalition, a very fascist coalition, is quite solid. And it can and might continue until the next elections in 2 years. There's another camp which is vocal, which is devoted, which is demonstrating day after day, week after week, but they have only two goals, unfortunately. So one goal is obviously releasing the hostages. The other goal is getting rid of Netanyahu. The goal of becoming more moral, the goal of saving the children of Gaza, the goal of saving the last remains of Gaza is not one of their flags. And therefore, I'm so reluctant about them. Now, which camp is bigger? Hard to say. They are both solid and big. I guess that if there would be elections today, Netanyahu wouldn't win. By all means, not. But, even the alternatives right now, you mentioned some names, but the alternative is not promising ending the war. The alternative is not promising ending the occupation or the apartheid. So, yeah, things will be better after Netanyahu, but not good enough.
Sure. Finally, the third pole, as it were, of international support or otherwise of Israel is always, if you look at the world, divided over the issue, but there's always the U.S. unequivocal support for Israel. And yet we see U.S. President Trump making statements. He's almost threatening Mr. Netanyahu when it came to plans to strike Iran, because there's a deal going on between the US and Iran and negotiations for that. Do you think the US is in any way withdrawing its support to Israel? How is that read over there?
Because we are dealing with Donald Trump, so it's very hard to foresee. It can be one day, it can be one day like this and one day like this. One day he supports Putin, and tomorrow and today he's already cursing Putin. One day he's insulting Zelensky, and tomorrow Zelensky might become back an ally. Very hard to tell. But it is a turning point, and this is maybe the most important question right now. What will the American administration do? Because would he like this war to end? It will be within days. Israel is totally depending now on the West, on the United States, also on Europe, but first of all on the United States like never before, because of Israel becoming gradually a pariah state. The dependence is much stronger in the few allies that Israel still possesses. And therefore, if there will be a shift in American policy, this will be really a new scene, a new era. Because until now, for decades, as you rightly said, Israel had more or less a carte blanche to do whatever it wants. There were no limits. Attacking, conquering, nuclear weapons, everything was allowed. If America will change now, Israel will face a new challenge which it never faced before.
Sure. In the columns that you spoke about as well, and there's a constant question, what happens on the day after Israel's bombardment of Gaza ends? What is the plan for there? And a large part of that is what is going to happen with the neighboring countries, Egypt, other Arab neighbors as well. Do you think that is something that Israel is working on right now? Are there contacts that might lead to meaningful cooperation in the future after everything we've seen in Gaza? I ask because in India, of course, India has been fairly muted on the issue, partly because of India's own connections with Israel, historical connection with Palestine. But in particular, in recent times, India's hopes have been pinned on the India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor that goes through Haifa. So many have asked, is there a point in thinking about such a project if the future of Israel's relations with neighboring Arab countries is never going to be fixed? What are your thoughts?
So first of all, it's not about my thoughts, about Netanyahu's thoughts, and he was very clear. He has a plan, and the plan is, as he phrased it, to destroy Gaza, to destroy Hamas, which means to destroy Gaza, and then to go for the Donald Trump's plan, which is transferring 2.3 million people out of Gaza. It is a plan. It is a plan of crimes against humanity and crimes of war. It is a plan which will never work, but that's the plan. Anything else starts and ends with the question, who will replace Hamas in Gaza? The question that you raise must come only after solution for Gaza. The Arab states, not only Arab states, by the way, yesterday the Prime Minister of Indonesia was very clear about having diplomatic relations with Israel, first time in history, the biggest Muslim country in the world, if only Israel will recognize a Palestinian state. So the horizon is there. Israel is missing all those opportunities, and there is no plan because, first of all, we don't know what to do with Gaza. There will be no Gaza without Hamas, unfortunately. And if it will be a Gaza without Hamas, it will be a Gaza of anarchy. There's no substitute. Nobody prepared a substitute for Hamas, and therefore we are stuck with this war, and all those big plans and dreams, I must say, must be postponed or even cancelled forever.
You spoke in India about 6 months ago, and you had said that you no longer think that a two-state solution is possible. Explain that. Explain why you think that's not possible, because that's still what everyone, including the US, including India, including the Arab states, are insisting upon.
The two-state solution is the best solution. Two peoples are struggling over one piece of land. Both of them deserve self-determination. Let's share the land between the two peoples and create two sovereign, independent states. There's only one problem, and this is the fact that the settlers did anything they could and succeeded to sabotage any potential for this. In the West Bank, in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, occupied East Jerusalem, there are 700,000 settlers, Jewish settlers. Most of them are very extreme, radical right-wingers, part of them very violent, and above all, they represent the strongest political group in Israel. Without their evacuation, there is no room for a Palestinian state. Their evacuation looks to me like a mission impossible. I don't see who is going to do it. No Israeli leader will be able to evacuate 700,000 settlers. Some of them are really powerful and violent. It might bring a total civil war here. If someone proves me that the two-state solution is still possible, I'll be the first one to sign on it. But we have also to prepare ourselves to the scenario in which maybe I'm right and the two-state solution is not achievable anymore because of the settlers. We cannot just say, okay, so the two-state solution doesn't work, as it didn't work for the last 55 years. Yeah, it's not that we didn't try. The fact is that we are far from it than ever. But we have to prepare a plan B. And my plan B is obviously the one democracy, the one-state solution between the river and the sea, one person, one vote, a democracy as any other democracy in the world. India is one person, one vote, and Israel should be one person, one vote, no matter what is your national or religious background. That's the vision. Time will show.
All right. And your sense of where IMEC will actually go, is it even a possibility if Israel remains on the route?
If Israel remains on the route, it's going to a very bad place. It will become an apartheid state. It is already, but officially apartheid state with an official apartheid system, a pariah state, totally isolated, some kind of Iran or North Korea, with very little empathy from the world and very little support. This can end in a very tragic way. That's the last chance for Israel really to change the roots. But right now, there's no one to lead it.
All right. We do ask in India many times about international conflicts of these kind. Does India have a role? According to you, does India have a role?
First of all, every country in the world has a role, because I believe that only by international pressure things will change. Israel will not change by itself. Forget about it. Israel will not wake up one morning and say the war must end because it's very brutal and barbaric. The occupation must end because it is an apartheid system, and so forth and so forth. It will not happen by itself. It will happen only with the intervention of the international community. And the international community, India is one of the strongest actors, players, with very good ties with both sides, I must say. And someone who has such good ties can influence. The question is if India, like any other country, is ready to take measures, not only to talk. With talking, we are fed up. I mean, everything was said, everything was threatened, everything was condemned. It doesn't change anything. Is India ready to even sacrifice some short-run interests of India in order to get to a solution and to really try to influence Israel to put an end to this crazy, crazy war, first of all? That's a question that Indians should ask themselves.
Sure. Gideon Levy, you're always so straight, direct, and you have remained, in a sense, critical of the government. Many always ask, how does Haaretz do it? If Israel is such a restrictive country and the government has put so many strictures on people, and there's such widespread support for the war, in a sense, or the unwillingness to criticize the war, how do you do it?
It's not very pleasant, but it is possible. First of all, I'm privileged to be a Jew. Would I be a Palestinian, I would be in jail a long time ago. Secondly, I'm privileged to work with Haaretz, which is still a very respected platform in Israel. And Haaretz gives us the full freedom of speech. The government, until now, tried to touch Haaretz, but only through economical measures, not through censorship or things like this. This is still far away, even though it can happen they just need to change some legislation. And they think about it. So nothing should be taken for granted. But right now, I'm very grateful for being free to express myself, having the platform, having the support. And yes, most of the Israelis don't like what I say. I'm banned on Israeli TV now for many, many months, ever since the war started. I'm not the victim of this war, obviously. And yes, I'm very grateful, but I don't take it for granted. It might change.
As journalists shouldn't. But Gideon Levy, thanks so much for speaking to us. Of course, Gideon Levy is the author also of The Punishment of Gaza. That's about a previous Israeli campaign there. But for the moment, that's all we have time for. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.